So, Keith, if local criminals are doing this because they're getting paid rather than a certain belief, does that change anything?
I think we can discuss this without going into the detail of this particular investigation, but talk about the principles. And the principles at stake are serious. We're talking not just about foreign interference, but we're talking about foreign interference that is leading to terror on our streets, particularly in the Jewish community. And that requires national leadership in calling that out. And you can do that in a way that doesn't compromise any investigation. So I noted in the Prime Minister's interview, he was asked if this is a crisis. And Julian is right, language matters. And the Prime Minister didn't accept that. He didn't accept that it's even a crisis. And so I think when we criticise the Prime Minister, we're not doing it for political gain. We're doing it because we want more. We expect more from our Prime Minister. And there's a good contrast to that. The New South Wales Premier, I think, is showing better leadership and the right tone in describing this crisis.
So there has been criticism of your government, Julian, that you're not proactive enough, that you're too reactionary. Do you concede that that is the case?
No, not at all. I've sat in the Parliament and listened to the Prime Minister's words, not the spin on the media, not the utter misrepresentations for partisan purposes from the Leader of the Opposition. I'll just be very clear. I have nothing but contempt for so-called political leaders, be they on the extreme left with the Greens political party or the right, who want to weaponise foreign conflicts for domestic political gain and chase votes and leverage divisions in Australian society for partisan purposes. And I'd point out that Peter Dutton had 9 years in government to do something and did nothing. It's this government that legislated to ban the Nazi symbol and work with states and territories to ban the Nazi salute. It's this government, after Peter Dutton did nothing for 9 years, that legislated to ban doxing, including the shameful practice of doxing Jewish Australians. You might want to ask Keith why the opposition voted against that.
The war had happened.
I want to finish this point. It's this government that legislated to ban hate crimes after 9 years of Peter Dutton and the opposition doing nothing. And Keith wasn't around then in 2016 when I was first in the Parliament. They don't like to talk about this, but the main legislative priority of Peter Dutton and Scott Morrison, that whole terrible cabal, was to weaken the Racial Discrimination Act, Section 18C, so Australians could say more racist stuff.
Right,
and it was the Labor Party that worked with the Jewish community then to stop them weakening our laws against racist
But this rise on anti-Semitism has happened.
So I'm not going to take lectures
it's happened
from
on
this
your watch,
utter
though.
hypocrite. I'm not going to take lectures from this utter hypocrite who did nothing for 9 years, who's weaponising this for partisan purposes, with his shameful record of trying to let people in Australia say more racist stuff.
That's moving away from the point, though. I mean, anti-Semitism, the rise has been during the war, which has been while you've been in power.
No, it's not. I just outlined to you 3 concrete legislative things that the government's done, including one which Peter Dutton and the Liberals opposed, to outlaw doxing, which is something they're happy to go on TV and complain about, but when it comes to voting in the Parliament, they voted against it. So I'm not going to take lectures on this. I work with the Jewish community. I've got very, very decades long-standing connections with Jewish friends, conservative and progressive, who have different views on what's happening overseas, as is their right as Australians.
Keith, do you want to close it out?
I do. I hear Julian's passion and frustration. But that passion and frustration is because of criticism of the government. Where is that passion and frustration at the attacks on the Jewish community? That's what we're looking for. That passion and frustration should have been heard out of the Prime Minister. We should be hearing that about this issue. And that should have happened after the protests outside the Sydney Opera House. And the Prime Minister has been missing in action since then. He should have been setting the pace. Instead, he is falling behind.
All right, but 30 seconds.
Just on this, just offensive.
Just on that point, and this is probably more to do with New South Wales Police, Keith. But there's been some 40 arrests just in New South Wales alone. Does that, in itself, suggest that a reaction is working?
That suggests that the police are doing their job, but that doesn't mean we can't have that and have national leadership.
Right?
They both work together, and that's what's missing.
All right, we're out of time, both, but good to have you with us. Appreciate your passion as always.